It's a divisional weekend in the National Football League. 8 teams left and all but one of the top 4 seeds in each conference moving on. Sal Paolantonio will preview Rams versus Eagles, Stafford versus Hurts, and McVay versus Sirianni. Justin Mark will have all your picks and props for the divisional weekend. Tim McManus joins us to talk more on Coach Nick and that Eagles passing game. And Greg Beachum from out in Los Angeles will check in on whether the Rams are still built for this. That's all right now on a jam-packed edition of This Week in Pro Football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football, a deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Media Sports.
All right. Thanks for joining me for a divisional weekend edition of This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan here. And I've got a lineup of greats here, of course, starting with the great Sal Paolantonio in just a few minutes. Justin Mark will be filling in for Sean Green. Sean driving back to Los Angeles from his temporary reload in Vegas. Tim McManus, my old buddy from Radio Days and the ESPN correspondent for the Philadelphia Eagles, will join us to talk about the Birds as they get ready for this game. And then Greg Beachum rejoins me. He was here in Week 12 when the Eagles flew out to Los Angeles. Greg will rejoin us to talk about whether the rallying cry the Rams used in the Minnesota game out in Glendale is going to be good enough for a very arduous trip east here to what will be very cold Philadelphia. All right, so that's an action-packed show. I hope you stay for the whole thing. Give me a follow, please, on X at TWIPF Pat. You can follow the network here, JAKIB Sports, at JAKIB Sports. And, of course, join the chat here. Join the chat. I love these guys all show long checking in, and I appreciate that very much. And look forward to your guys' comments. If I see one that is particularly interesting, I'll get it on the air. We'll get it right here on the screen, and we'll talk about it. All right. But anyway, let me start off with this. The first one, Xander, if you would, which is the wild card weekend results. It was a lot of chalk, ladies and gentlemen. Not much happened with the exception of that first one on the upper left there. Commanders over the Buccaneers. That's the 6th seed. The only upset, Commanders 6th seed beating the 3 seed Bucs 23-20. And on a winning field goal, which was really something to see. If any of you, I hope most of you saw it there. And the Commanders kicker, God bless him too. He has an obvious OCD that he talks about. He talks about it straight out. And but his hair looked perfect when he hit that ball off the right goalpost and through for the Commanders win. The rest of it, really kind of, like I said, really kind of chalk. The Eagles really had no trouble with the Packers. I didn't think they would. The Bills, despite what Sean Green thought, Bills all over the Broncos 31-7. Broncos, they're just not ready yet. They're a year away. They're going to be a good team next year. Texans easily dispatched the Chargers. The Chargers, I don't know. They had a nice season there. Jim Harbaugh did a nice job, but they're still the Chargers. There's no getting around it. 3 interceptions all year by their quarterback, and he throws 4 Saturday against Houston, Justin Herbert. What are you going to do? And then the Ravens all over the Steelers. That was not a surprise to me. And it sets up a cataclysmic game in the AFC Sunday night, Ravens and Bills. All right, Xander, thanks very much. Just a quick look at that second one now, which is the playoff, the grid and where it stands right now, heading into the divisional weekend. You can see now you're set up here with Baltimore visiting Buffalo. That's the Sunday night game. Saturday afternoon, Houston, they'll never get out of that Saturday afternoon slot. I don't care what they do. They will be summarily dismissed by Kansas City. The Rams on Sunday, 3 o'clock, visiting Philadelphia. That is a tough haul. That's a tough haul for the Rams. Rams look terrific Monday night. There is a whole new level of opponent facing them Sunday. And we'll talk to Sal Pao about that at some length. And then Saturday night, the Commanders off that win over Tampa, visiting number 1 seed Detroit. That is a that is a tall order indeed for the Commanders now to go against a rested Detroit team. The Lions just take no prisoners at all, and that'll be a tough game. All right, thanks, Xander, very much. All right, how about we bring this gentleman on here who is, of course, my longtime colleague on both radio and TV, and the host of the Matchup Show on ESPN, and a game day analyst for the mothership, and the national correspondent for ESPN. That would be Sal Paolantonio. Sal, how you doing?
Pat, we are a couple of weeks away from the Super Bowl, Pat. We are locked in and ready to go, baby. Doesn't get any more intense than this right now.
Right.
This has always been my favorite weekend because these are the games that decide who goes to the championship game, and anything can happen at championship game. This is where you got to lock it in and lock down and do what you do best.
Right. I think that's the last thing you said there. I think will very much come into play this weekend. So let me just start with this. Anything last weekend caught your eye relative? I mentioned it was a lot of chalk. The lower seeded teams, the 5, 6, 7s, they got blown away, except for the Commanders. Anything catch your eye on those games last Saturday, Sunday, Monday?
Well, let's talk about the teams that have moved forward. Let's talk about the Commanders. Jaden Daniels in the fourth quarter. Younger, faster, stronger. As a dual threat quarterback, very difficult to defend. If the Commanders are close in the fourth quarter, they will give Detroit a big problem. Pat, I cannot believe the Commanders are getting 9.5 points in that game. Yeah. 9.5 points. To me, if the Commanders get to the fourth quarter within 1 score, look out. That's 1. 2, I just believe that Josh Allen is playing on a freakish level, not on this planet. I think he's different from everybody right now. His ability to escape, his ability to throw the ball on a dime from 40 yards out, his ability to extend plays. Again, quarterback, difference maker, Josh Allen. Number 3, Vic Fangio's defense. Pat, of the 28 dropbacks that Jordan Love had in that game for the Green Bay Packers, Vic Fangio called the blitz 1 time. Yeah. 1. Yeah. The Eagles' front 4 got home without blitzing. And that's why they are number 1 in the National Football League. They have the number 1 defense, number 1 pass defense, number 1 in points allowed since week 6. They can get home, Pat, without blitzing. And that's what Stafford will see. Stafford will not see a whole lot of blitzes in his face. Yeah. Because as they mentioned during the broadcast of that game against the Cardinals, Troy Aikman talked about it. You cannot blitz Matthew Stafford. You're wasting your time. He's too good. He's too good. And then the Rams, Pat, it sounds like a cliche. It sounds like fantasy land. But when a team is playing for something bigger than itself, it forces you to focus in a way that maybe you normally would not. And I think the Rams were really focused on winning that game because it was about something bigger than the team.
Right. I agree. I agree with you wholeheartedly about it, Sal. The Rams rallied around Sean McVay telling him that they were, quote, built for this. But, Sal, you can't sustain that. I think the Rams are in for a long day Sunday. You and I will talk about that after the break more. I want to get 2 comments from you about that Eagle-Packer game. One is the Eagles' passing game. I don't want to use – I'm not using the word moribund. I'm just saying that the passing game, again, was, I'll say, secondary. Now, do you think that was just the way the game the Eagles didn't really need it? And it's just indicative of how the whole regular season has gone? Or do you see any systemic issues with the Eagles passing game right now?
All 3. It was anemic. They couldn't get it going. I mean, Pat, you got to throw the ball to A.J. Brown 10 times a game. I don't care if he's open. I don't care if he's double teamed. He has that level of talent. He got to get 10 targets. He's your number one wide receiver. You paid him $100 million.
Right.
Throw him the football. That's it. Throw him the football. Just keep throwing it to him. And you know what? He'll catch him.
Yeah.
He will catch him. So I thought it was anemic. Jalen Hurts was rusty. The balls were thrown in the dirt. Plus it's systemic. They are about their run game with Saquon Barkley, and they did that in Los Angeles with 255 yards for Saquon a couple of weeks ago. So it's all of those things. But in this particular game, they make a mistake by getting into a shootout with Matthew Stafford, I think.
All right. Well, we'll do that, Sal. Like I said, we'll talk about that game more extensively. I want to ask you one other question. The Eagles losing to Kobe Dean. Just give me your thoughts on that. Do you think this is something that they'll find hard to fill in his absence, or do you think the Eagles have plenty enough on that starting 11 to compensate?
Pat, Oren Burks can play. Oren Burks is 6'3". Nakobe Dean is 5'11". Oren Burks is 240 pounds. He outweighs Nakobe Dean. Oren Burks can move and he can hit. He's got 2 tackles where he's jarred the football loose and tackles for a loss. I mean, he can play. Now, Nakobe Dean, great young player. Love him. Running mate for Zach Bond. But, it's the next man up, and Oren Burks can play.
Yeah. All right. Listen, Sal, when we get back, I do want to talk with you about, obviously, Rams-Eagles. I want to specifically talk about Stafford versus Hurts, McVay versus Sirianni, 2 impressive young coaches in this game. We'll do all that with Sal. I do want all you guys here on, ladies and gentlemen, on the chat. I want to hit you with a trivia question. Winner gets a first one I see with the right answer. Sal's got the game notes. It's the size of a college textbook. So take advantage of that. Somebody answer this trivia question. I'll send you a This Week in Pro Football t-shirt. Sal, you're exempt. You're not allowed to answer. Who holds the NFL record for the most in the postseason for most consecutive games with a touchdown? Who holds the NFL record for the most consecutive postseason games scoring a touchdown? It's not a quarterback throwing them. Who scored most consecutive postseason games? I'll look at those answers throughout. We'll be back with Sal Paolantonio here on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Auto.
Welcome back. We've got another exciting play underway at KennedyAuto.com.
That's right. At KennedyAuto.com, you can browse their entire inventory from home.
The customer is scrolling hundreds of Ford, Mazda, and Subaru vehicles right at his fingertips.
He made his selection and got a bottom line price set directly to his email. He could go all the way.
And the deal is good, all without leaving his couch. Incredible. KennedyAuto.com. Enjoy your ride.
Discover the essence of true community banking with First Bank, your trusted partner across Eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Their network of branches brings you convenient access to dedicated personal bankers who understand your unique needs. At First Bank, you're not just a customer, you're a valued member of the community. Additionally, they are excited to announce the opening of 2 new branches in Media, Pennsylvania and Trenton, New Jersey, bringing their personalized banking services even closer to you. Connect with any member of the team today at their Westchester office, conveniently located at 849 Paoli Pike, or call them at 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC.
Johnny Apple's Restaurant and Bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's Restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
And welcome back here This Week in Pro Football. Callahan joining you with the excellent Sal Paolantonio. Sal, thanks for hanging on with me. Let me just posit two things to you here. Rams, Eagles. Rams lead the all-time postseason series. These teams have only met 3 times in the postseason. 1949, I know you covered that game. 1949, the Eagles won. Rams beat the Eagles in the 2001 NFC title game, and then 21-7 in a wild card game. They beat Randall Cunningham. Okay, Sal, here's how I see it. The Rams need to stop number 26. In order for them to have a chance, they need to take a chance on A.J. Brown beating them, as opposed to Barkley, who will absolutely beat them. All right. On the flip side, I think what the Eagles need to do is get the Rams out of play action. They need to get them into second and long, so the play action is no longer an issue, because that's the only way the Ram offense thrives is through that. Give me your thoughts there on those 2 points.
Well, Pat, playoff tackle football, professional tackle football is about matchups. That's what it's about. And the matchup of the Eagles offensive line against the Rams defensive line was just basically lopsided the last time they played.
Right.
The Eagles offensive line manhandled them, moved them off the line of scrimmage. They're not a heavy offensive line. They're built to rush the passer, not stop the run.
Right.
So they're going to have to load up the box to stop the run, which means that's going to reduce their ability to double team anybody. Brown, Smith, Goddard, Dotson, doesn't matter.
Right.
So you're absolutely right. If they're going to get beat by those guys, that means that they have tried to load up the box to try to minimize the matchup problem that they have with the bigger, stronger offensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
And that's basically it. That's what this game comes down to, 100%.
And then on the flip side, I had mentioned that the Rams will move the ball on you if they can make you think they're going to run it. But I think second and long, they don't have the speed at wide receiver to beat you at that point between Nakua and Kupp, who's really kind of been sidelined as a receiving threat now for the Rams. So I think
it's 2 guys, Pat. It's Pua, Nakua, and Higbee, the tight end.
Right.
So Pua Nakua is a beast. He's exceptionally difficult to find. He's constantly moving around. So you can create matchups through talent, through speed. And as Ron Jaworski always taught me when I was on the matchup show with him for many, many years, formation, variation, and motion creates matchups. And that's the key to what Sean McVay does. Right. He sends Pua Nakua all over the field, moves him around, pre-snap. And then sometimes, if you watch him closely, Nakua, he will unload at the line of scrimmage his pass route, not outside the tackle box, but between the tackles. And it's very difficult to find him. He's shifty, strong, fast, quick, in and out of his breaks. And once he gets the ball in his hands, you got to make sure you get his body on the ground. So Nakua is a major matchup problem for the Eagles. The Eagles don't handle slot receivers very well. And they haven't faced a guy like this since the last time they played the Rams. I don't know. Did Nakua play in that game? Was he hurt?
No, I think he did play in that game.
He did play in that game. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But Nakua, he's the key, without a doubt. If the Eagles are preoccupied with him, that'll open things up for Higbee.
And Higbee, if he's got to stay healthy too. That guy is always hurt, but he's a big. You're right. He's a big key too for the Rams. And let me ask you this, Sal. Matt Stafford, not a great year, but boy, he showed up Monday night. He's 18-3 in the month of December, January, and February as a Ram. So this guy knows how to play football when it counts. Like you said, postseason tackle football. How would you rate the 2 quarterbacks as they're playing right now in Sunday's game? Do the Rams actually have an advantage here?
They do. I have a ton of respect for Matthew Stafford. So what does he do very, very well? Well, in the red zone, his ability to move outside the pocket, subtle movement inside the pocket, get outside the pocket, stretch the defense, put stress on the defense, challenge it, and then hit open receivers. You saw that all night long against the Vikings. The numbers bear that out. They're very good in the red zone. They're okay on third down, but their pass offense was so much better than the Eagles. They were 10th. The Eagles were 29th. And it's mostly because of Matthew Stafford. He's very accurate. Ball comes out of his hands quickly. He's got good trajectory on the ball. So this is the problem that the Eagles will have. If they're not going to splits him, they have to put pressure on him. And when they get pressure on him, they got to bring him down. You can't let him get out of the pocket and extend the plays.
Yeah. Sal, do you think the weather will play any kind of a factor? Between 25, 30 degrees, maybe some snow on the ground. I think it's going to be a problem for the Ram passing game. It's such a hostile environment, not just for Packer fans either. It's a hostile environment. Give me your thoughts on what the conditions might do relative to this matchup.
Yeah, it's going to be brutal. And, you just don't know. You're out in L.A., then you go to Arizona, then you go back to L.A., and then you got to get on a flight, and you got to land in Philadelphia, and they're egging your bus. Yeah. You're coming off I-95. They're screaming obscenities at you when you come on the field. It's a nasty environment, Pat. I've covered a lot of games at the Vet. It's a major home field advantage. You don't want fans attacking other fans, but you do want that menacing attitude that sets the tone on the field. Saquon Barkley was at his locker after the game against the Packers, and you heard what he said. I underestimated the home field advantage in the playoffs here. I've never experienced anything like this before. And this guy played major college football, and he played in New York. And he said, I've never felt this kind of energy before.
And I'm telling you, it's going to be double Sunday what it was last Sunday, I think. Sal, a word about the two coaches. Now, I mentioned this to you in the last couple of weeks too. And Nick Sirianni, 51-23 now, all time, 3-3 as at postseason against Sean McVay, 88-56, 8-4 postseason. I asked you about
that's the major difference. Yep.
Yeah.
That is the major. So Sirianni lost the Super Bowl by 3 points.
Right.
McVay won a Super Bowl by 3 points.
Right.
And that is the difference. 6 points, Pat. 6 points. That is the difference. That is the difference between the two guys. One's got a resume that could put him in the Hall of Fame someday, and the other guy is, everybody wants to fire him after 4 weeks.
I know, Sal. I know. He might be the most underrated coach in the NFL. Seriously. I mean, he might be. Look at that. 51-23. I mean, you can't argue with the kind of success this guy has in Philadelphia. And yet, if you ask the average, even NFL analysts, they're going to say the Rams might have a sideline edge this Sunday.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, Fangio in the booth and Kellen Moore's proved to be, evolving as a pretty good play caller. So, it's three guys. And McVay is a great play caller and a great play designer. So this is a great matchup, Pat.
Yeah.
This is a great matchup. I cannot believe that the Eagles will win by a touchdown. But Vegas loves the Eagles at home, and they love the Eagles because of that backdoor fourth quarter Saquon Barkley touchdown. Yeah. That puts the game away, and Barkley, of course, slid last week. But still the Eagles covered. They won and they covered last week.
Yeah, but that's indicative of what you talked about. It means it's just what you said. They wear you down. So by the time the fourth quarter, boom, there he goes. He gets a hold the size of a truck to drive through, and he drives.
And that's why Vegas loves the Eagles, and that's why the Eagles are 6-point favorites. It's that backdoor cover. Saquon Barkley, that run for a touchdown in the fourth quarter that opens up the game late.
All right, Xander, if you would, can you bring up that divisional schedule here? Sal, I got a few minutes left. I want to get a take from you on the other three games. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this one. Houston visiting Kansas City, Sal. Houston is a 8-point favorite. So it's amazing. Houston is a slightly better underdog than Washington is. Does Houston have any chance to go into Arrowhead and win this game?
I don't see it, Pat. These lines are big. The only one that's small is Ravens 1 point over the Bills. These lines are huge.
Yeah.
I don't see them winning. They have done a good job, though, Houston's defense, against some pretty good quarterbacks this year.
All right. Sal, the other Saturday night game, we talked about the Commanders. A nice win for them. I love this kid at quarterback. This kid is going to be a major root canal for the Eagles in the next coming years. Just Daniels. They go to Detroit. Number 1 seed, sat there last week. Detroit's a team that loves to beat you up and beat you bad. Tell me your thoughts on this game.
Well, like I said at the beginning of your show, if the Commanders keep it close, watch out in the fourth quarter. They could steal the game. I don't like this line at all. What is it now, Pat?
The line is the 9.5.
Yeah, I don't like it at all. That's a Commanders line for me.
Yeah. All right. And Sal, we talked at length about Eagles-Rams. This Sunday night game is a huge, to me, should be a great game, right? And what I wanted to ask you about was, I think it's also a legacy game, Sal. I think this is the rubber meeting the road for Josh Allen and for the Ravens. This is why the Ravens got Derrick Henry. So it's Lamar Jackson I've always joked about him, January Lamar. It's Jackson dragging that 5-8 postseason record now against Josh Allen, who's the window's closing on Josh Allen only because he plays such a rough game that sooner or later he's going to get hurt. Give me your thoughts on this game Sunday night.
Weather. I like the Bills.
Okay.
I like the Bills in this game.
Yeah.
I think they will load up on Derrick Henry, and they'll try to make Lamar Jackson beat him, and he won't be able to do it. I like the Bills.
I think, Sal, I think you're right. I think Josh Allen, he can play, use that old Bum Phillips line almost, that he can take yours and beat his or his and beat yours. I think Allen is, and cold weather doesn't mean a thing to him.
No, They could play on the doorstep of the Niagara Falls. It wouldn't matter for Josh Allen.
Yeah. All right, Xander, thanks, pal. All right, Sal, I assume you're going to have the Sox. You will be in Philadelphia this weekend. Anything coming up? Tell me what you're accentuating on the matchup show.
Oh, we got these games, Pat, and we will be looking at the Eagles defense against the Rams offense. We will be looking at Josh Allen against the Ravens defense, which sets up as a very nice matchup. And then, where do the points come for Patrick Mahomes against a very good Texans defense? So I think those are three pretty good things. And, Jaden Daniels, he's an X factor, man. Yeah. I mean, if the Commanders were to go up there and win the game, it would not surprise me at all.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I love that take. I mean, I'd love to see, quite frankly, I'd love to see Washington do it as somebody who obviously
Eagles win, Commanders win.
Yep.
See you at the NFC Championship game in South Philadelphia, Pat.
All right, Sal pal. Listen, thanks very much for joining me. Look forward to talking to you again next week here as we rumble on. We're going right through the Super Bowl, and I want you here the whole time. And stay safe on Sunday. All right.
All right, Pat.
All right. Thanks very much to Sal pal. Listen, I appreciate here looking at the chat. Remember, I said it's who scored the most consecutive, the postseason TD in the most consecutive games. All right, so it's not a quarterback. It's not Jerry Rice, not Travis Kelce. It's not Gronk. Great guesses, though. Great guesses. One other hint. It's not LaDainian Tomlinson. Sorry, Jesse. One other hint. The team that this guy did it with, all one team, they're playing this weekend. All right. That should give it to you right there. So let's see if you get the answer when we get back. I'm also going to be joined by Justin Mark, who was, by the way, I want you to listen to this guy, number 1 on Tally site for NFL prognostication in 2024. All right. So let's give Justin some props, and he'll give us some props. That's next on This Week in Pro Football.
Welcome to Park Bank, a return to better banking. With 7 locations across Philadelphia and South Jersey, we prioritize your financial well-being with a blend of modern amenities and traditional customer service. Our professional team is dedicated to providing tailored banking solutions, whether you are opening your first account, planning for retirement, or expanding your business. Our services include a wide range of personal and business banking options with competitive deposit rates and products. We are committed to making your banking experience seamless and efficient with the latest technology at your fingertips and the personalized support you deserve. Park Bank, your bank, your community. For more information, go to parkbank.com. That's Park, P-A-R-K-E, bank.com. Member FDIC. Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated is the concrete cutting specialist in the Philadelphia area since 1995, and they've become the specialist in the Pittsburgh area as well. These guys are celebrating 28 years as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. So if you have a project that requires any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition, or interior excavating, call the specialist, Concrete Cutting Systems, located at 2514 Orthodox Street in the heart of Philly. Call them at 215-533-0652. With a fleet of over 70 service trucks, Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated is always ready to service all of your concrete cutting, drilling, and concrete demolition and highway sealing needs. These guys are the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. So don't delay. Call the boys today at 215-533-0652. And be sure to check them out on Facebook and Instagram at CCSINC_Phila or on the web at concretecuttingsystems.net.
Welcome back this week in pro football. Pat Callahan here. Great session there with Sal Paolantonio. The question I asked was, who holds the NFL record for scoring the most, for scoring a touchdown in the most consecutive postseason games? Okay, that's the question I'm asking. Marshall Faulk was a great guess. That is not correct. All right, there's a name out there. There's a couple names I haven't seen yet. One of them is the right one, so let's try that. It's not Jamal Lewis. And Abe, I'm sorry. You can keep saying Travis Kelce till the next show comes on. It is not Travis Kelce. I'll tell you, though, Kelce, he's not even – he doesn't even make the list. So, no, it's not Travis Kelce. All right. So, anyway, thank you for hanging out with me here. How about we bring this gentleman on here from the Sports Gambling Podcast, and that would be Justin Mark. And, Justin, you have a heavy, heavy pedigree. Thanks a lot for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun to hang out and talk football with you.
All right. I know you made fun of my Philadelphia accent. I'm going to try and talk very erudite now this time, Justin, so you can't hurl that kind of invective at me. But because you're from the back east, right? You're from where are you from?
No, I'm from Iowa, born and raised.
Oh, okay. Born and raised in Iowa. Okay. All right. All right. You're the guy with the whiskey, right? You got the guy who say, I'll tell you. What's your signature brand this week?
So my favorite brand actually just got bought out. So that's been kind of a bummer. It was Savage and Cook out of California. The good news is they got bought out by another brand that I'm a pretty big fan of, and that's Redwood Empire. So I'm excited to see what they do as they kind of mold the minds of the two distillers there.
Good for you. Good for you. It's a great sidelight. Great sidelight for you there. I'll tell you what. Between with having to make all these picks, I hope it doesn't become a crutch. I'll tell you that. But so the picks you made in 24, I guess you haven't needed a drop. So good for you. All right, let's start with this, Justin. Last week I made reference on the show here that it's almost all chalk, and I wonder I should go back and look at that wild card round, but I have a suspicion it's predominantly chalk every single year. Is the deck just stacked against these lower seeded teams playing in that round?
I mean, I think it depends, but when you have, division winners that they may only have to win 8 or 9 games to get in, obviously that kind of is hard to go against in one of the top tier teams. I was waiting for all the people that complain about the college football playoffs, about letting the Indianas in. They're going to start attacking the NFL playoffs. Like,
Yeah.
Just because they had won their division doesn't mean they're the best teams. Let somebody else in.
I know that's true. Now that is true. Listen, if I can segue for just a second, Xander, flexing and stepping, you nailed it. Flexing and stepping, it's Thurman Thomas. 9 straight games with a postseason touchdown. Good for you. I'll have to grab some information off of him. We get him a T-shirt. I'm sorry, Justin. I had posed a trivia question here.
All good.
My guys, I knew it. I knew they would step up. Okay. I also now let's take a look Sunday. I want to ask one other thing from you about the weekend, the wild card weekend, and that is the Monday night game. Now the Vikings go 14-3 all season long. As a guy who picks games for a living, were you a believer in Sammy Bradford, or did you suspect that at some point, and at the worst point of the year, Week 18 in the first round of the playoffs, that the real Sam Bradford was going to reappear?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Sam Darnold.
Yeah, Sam Darnold. My dad texted me and said that he looked terrible, and I said he looked like the guy that had been on the field saying that he saw ghosts. I don't know if you remember 3-4 years ago. He was seeing ghosts, and that's unfortunately that's kind of what I thought might happen. I mean, it was a great season. He can hang his hat on that, and probably going to get some sort of a payday from it. But I think that the kind of the luck that it seemed like he was having was only going to last so long. So I wasn't necessarily surprised to see the Rams dominate that game.
All right. Okay. Well, let's talk then about these 4, Justin, this week, talking with Justin Mark here, the Sports Gambling Podcast. Justin, let's start with I don't know, I want to say the easiest one, but the Houston Texans will never, ever escape that Saturday 4:30 slot. I mean, they're just penciled in there forever. They go to Kansas City. An 8-point, at least the last number I have is 8 on ESPN Bet. Just give me your thoughts on this one. Is Houston capable? They're not going to win unless you tell me something shocking. Are they capable of a late game cover here?
Yeah, I think so. And I kind of believe in the Texans to stick around. I don't believe in them to win, but I believe in them to keep it close. Kansas City, it's hard to say where they're at as a team. Last year, I said the offense doesn't look the same, but then playoffs came about and they routed everybody and obviously won. They look like they could be a team of destiny again. But I don't know. It's interesting to me. I think in 29 of the last 30 Super Bowl winners, I believe they had at least a top 15 running back or wide receiver. The Chiefs have that. And I don't think their defense is performing at the same level it was last year. So I think the Texans can give them problems. I don't think the Texans have it to win yet. Okay. All right. You started off that comment with I'm not sure where Kansas City is. Well, one thing they are at is they're at Arrowhead. And I'm not a conspiracy guy. I don't believe it, but I do believe that they have 17 guys on the field at any one time, because Mahomes is going to get every single call that there is to get. And I think, Justin, eventually that has immeasurable help for Kansas City, because they get all the calls and it certainly helps them win games. But all right, Houston's going to keep it close. Washington at Detroit, the Saturday night game, Justin, it's a big number. Detroit 9.5. Obviously, Vegas is not respecting Washington's win at Tampa Bay. Give me your thoughts on this one. Early bettors not really respecting them either. On the spread, according to DraftKings anyways, it's fairly even. I expected that most of the money would be on the Commanders since it is such a big number, but it's fairly even so far. This one's so hard because the Lions can go off and just score bundles of points, right? My favorite play in this is actually the over. I love the over 55.5 points. I think there's going to be a lot of points by both teams, but the Commanders, they proved a lot to me last week. I had the Bucs winning that game. I was a believer in Baker and the boys, and just didn't work out. But with a rookie quarterback and everything that is new to that team, I think there has to be a stop at some point. And I think this weekend is the stop. Can they make it a game? Probably. But I think the Lions do win this, and they probably easier than most people are giving them credit for.
Okay. All right. I think, well, that's what I asked you about, whether the deck is stacked against the lower seeds. And I think in this case, there's no better evidence of this. Washington, tough win over Tampa, very emotional win. And then they got to go 6 days later to face a team that's been off for a week and a team that hates your guts, the Detroit Lions. And I think that's going to be a real tall order. But I love that kid at quarterback. He's going to be a superstar in this league. All right, the game that's of most interest to the people watching here, the Rams. And I posit the same thing to you, Justin. The Rams, an emotional win Monday night. They're built for this and all that stuff. Well, now, boys, you got to get on a plane. You got to come 3,000 miles east, 25 degrees, 1 to 3 inches of snow. I don't think emotion's going to do it. Give me your thoughts on this game, Justin.
Yeah, and I know Matt Stafford has obviously played cold games before, but you got to remember he's getting older, and the older you get, the harder it is to be out in the cold, in my opinion. Yeah, this Eagles team, and I'm not just saying this because it's a Eagles-based show, they're just loaded. I mean, if they don't hurt you with Saquon Barkley, they got the guys that can catch the ball, and not just one. I mean, there are multiple playmakers on that team, and if it's not Saquon running, it's Jalen Hurts. The defense is playing at a very high level. I like the Rams team. I like Matt Stafford. I think he's had a really good career. I like Puka. I like Cooper. I just don't think they have it in them to win this game. I don't even think they have it in them to cover this game.
Yeah. Okay. I happen to agree with you on that. I think it's, again, just tough to do that. You're playing the number 2 seed. They've been sitting at home. You got to come east. The NFL, but you know what, Justin? I think the NFL does it right. Once you earn it, they give you all the benefits you could possibly want. That's the way it's got to be. I think it's a tough call for the Rams here. All right, Justin. By the way, can you give me one prop in this game? Is there a particular prop you think would be a good one for Eagles-Rams?
Yeah, absolutely. Jalen Hurts rushing yards over 39.5. He's hit this in 3 of the last 4 games. And if you watched last week, the Rams got after the quarterback. It was a quarterback that couldn't move in Sam Darnold like Jalen Hurts can. I think they're going to continue to get after the quarterback, but Jalen Hurts is good enough that he can avoid that pressure and take off running. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he's got 40 yards by the first half.
All right, Justin. And the last game, I think, really is going to be the best one. I mentioned to Sal Paolantonio. I think this is a legacy game for Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. One of them is staring a massive anvil in the face, which is you can't win the big game in postseason, and now you have to wait again till September. Which quarterback blinks in this game?
I think Lamar Jackson blinks, honestly. I got the Bills going to the Super Bowl. I do have them beating the Chiefs in the next round in my picks here. So I just think, Josh Allen has had an amazing season. I know there's a lot of debate on who's the MVP. He's done more with less, in my opinion. I mean, his receivers get less separation, and he doesn't have Derrick Henry. Now, James Cook, a very good running back, but he's not Derrick Henry. I just think Josh Allen, he's got more grit, I think, is what it is for me. He's gonna be that tough guy out there that puts the team on his back and proves it. Whereas we've seen in the past when Lamar has to put the team on his back, sometimes he tends to choke, right? And I think, unfortunately, a great season for the Ravens again, but I don't think they're going to get any farther than this weekend.
Justin, I think two interesting props to compare would be Saquon rushing yards for the Ram Eagle game versus Derrick Henry rushing yards, because I bet Saquon beats his and Derrick Henry misses his, because the Rams are going to try and commit to stopping Saquon, and they're not going to do it. The Bills are going to commit to stopping Derrick Henry, and they are going to do it because Lamar's going to have to prove it that he can win. And I just don't think he's going to do it, Justin.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I'll give you my favorite prop in this one. Zay Flowers didn't practice again. Based on the strain he does have, I don't expect him back. So give me Rashad Bateman anytime touchdown. That's at plus 165. He had one last week. I think he gets another one. That's a guy that Lamar does trust. He's familiar with him, and so I think that's who he targets in the red zone.
All right. So let me just reviewing them with you. You've got Houston to cover, so you're not going all chalk on me. You got Houston, but then you got Buffalo. Buffalo's a dog, right? Do I have it right? Baltimore's a 1-point favorite. That's crazy. But okay. But then you got Detroit, and then you got Philly, and I certainly agree with you on that. All right, Justin, where does everybody find you, and where would they find you relative to the Whiskey Talk?
Yeah, so you can find me on the X at JMark Football, And then you can find our podcast it's Old Fashioned Football. Just look it up on YouTube. We're on Spotify, Apple as well. It's me and my wife talking football and reviewing whiskeys. We have a lot of distiller interviews, which is always interesting. And the two I mentioned before, Redwood Empire buying out Savage and Cook, we've had both those distillers on, and we're going to bring them back around March once they've all settled to kind of talk about how this blending of the two distillers and everything is gone for them.
Wow. That's interesting. It's a great sidelight. And it obviously has not impacted your ability to pick winning games. As I said, number one on Tally site in 2024. Congratulations to you there. And thanks a lot for filling in for Mr. Green. And I hope to have you again before the season is over. All right.
Absolutely. Anytime. Cheers.
All right, Justin Mark. Thanks very much, pal. Xander, bring up that Jesse. Who was it? Jesse G had a comment there about it. There we go. The Ravens spanked the Bills earlier in the year. Right. I don't see Buffalo turning around that much. That's an interesting comment because it was a Sunday night game. It was in Baltimore. Henry takes off on the first play. It goes 85 yards or whatever it was for a touchdown, and really just totally set the Bills back on their heels. So I don't think Buffalo has to turn around much. But, I mean, this is a seasoned team playing at home. I don't know. I think Buffalo's going to win this game. I do. I'd like to see the Ravens win it, quite frankly. I love Josh Allen, but I'd like to see the Ravens win. But this is why they got Derrick Henry. This is the reason. So we'll see if it pays off or not. All right, listen, we get back. I'm always pleased to be joined by this gentleman, my longtime colleague on radio this week, the radio version of This Week in Pro Football, and a guy now is the NFL correspondent for the Philadelphia Eagles for ESPN. That's Tim McManus. And we will focus again on Rams Eagles. We'll do that next on This Week in Pro Football.
Somewhere on the blue planet lies a hidden gem, nestled in the heart of lush greenery. Where the game of golf takes on a new meaning. At Spring Mill Country Club, we offer an unparalleled golfing experience. Our meticulously maintained course is designed to challenge and delight golfers of all levels. But that's not all. Spring Mill is also the perfect venue for your most cherished celebrations. From intimate gatherings to grand weddings, our elegant banquet facilities provide the perfect backdrop for your special day. With exquisite cuisine, personalized service, and breathtaking surroundings, every event at Spring Mill becomes a cherished memory. Let us be a part of your journey, whether it's a round of golf, a celebration, or a once-in-a-lifetime wedding. Spring Mill Country Club, where every moment is extraordinary. Visit us today and create your unforgettable story.
Welcome back. We've got another exciting play underway at KennedyAuto.com.
That's right. At KennedyAuto.com, you can browse their entire inventory from home.
The customer is scrolling hundreds of Ford, Mazda, and Subaru vehicles right at his fingertips.
He made his selection and got a bottom line price set directly to his email. He could go all the way.
And the deal is good, all without leaving his couch. Incredible. KennedyAuto.com. Enjoy your ride.
Johnny Apple's Restaurant and Bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's Restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
Welcome back here this week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you. Don't forget, give me a follow on X at TWIPFPat. And you can follow this guy at Tim_McManus. I hope I'm going to check that with Tim. Is that right, pal? Did I get that right?
Yeah, you're on it.
At Tim_McManus, my longtime co-host on This Week in Pro Football, and now the ESPN correspondent for the Philadelphia Eagles. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, Pat. Good to be with you. What's going on?
Tim, thanks for taking the time, pal. I know you're running around. Still only 3 kids. I didn't miss one, did I?
3, yeah, 3 as far as I know, PAT.
Oh, that I'll tell you. And if anybody might be in doubt on that number, it's you, pal. I've seen that. I wouldn't be at all surprised.
Yeah.
But I hope everybody's healthy and happy and in the McManus household. All right, pal. I want to ask you from a Philadelphia Eagles perspective these two questions. First, your thoughts on the Eagles win over Green Bay. What did you like about the win over the Packers? And what really might, as an Eagle, as someone who covers Eagles, what might have troubled you in that win over the Packers?
Well, this defense just continues to impress. That's number one. It was a stifling performance, and that's something that really came as a surprise throughout the course of the year, where this maybe thought, okay, this could be like a mid-tier defense coming off of, basically a 31st rank in 2023, and Vic Fangio has helped get them all the way up to number one. And, Jordan Love could have had a better game, and they certainly had some injuries along the way at receiver that hurt them. But also, the Eagles caused some of those injuries. They've been this physical group that has imposed their will.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that translates in playoff football clearly. One thing that would concern you would be the pass game. It was conservative. It was uninspired.
Right.
Jalen Hurts just, he hasn't had a great year, but he also hasn't been asked to do a whole lot. So it just feels like at some point, Pat, it's coming, right? Like,
right.
I don't know if it's going to be against the Rams or if it's going to be against the Lions or if it's going to be against the Bills or when it's going to happen. At some point, this passing is going to have to kick into gear. And, we certainly didn't see that in the wild card round.
Okay. Now, let's flip it to the Rams Monday night win over Minnesota. Again, from an Eagle perspective, what in that game, as you looked at it, would give you pause as an Eagle coach or an Eagle player that, wow, this is not the same team that we bulldozed in week 12?
Right. So the defensive front is what will scare you, especially if the Rams, as I anticipate, will kind of sell out to stop Saquon Barkley after he runs 255 yards. And then so if you can get Philly in like 3rd and 6 plus, then, that defensive line is really quick and really good and can wreak havoc. 9 sacks in that game against the Vikings. And, Sam Darnold reverted back to the Jets version.
He sure did. He sure did, Tim.
So, I don't know how much credit. They definitely deserve some credit, and you have to sort of parse that, how much of that is the QB regressing versus how good the Rams were. But if you give them a little bit of time to get to the quarterback, they're going to get to the quarterback.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb, Tim, and say that Jalen Hurts will not hold the ball for 13 seconds until the pass rush finally gets to him. But I agree with you. And I said to Sal Paolantonio that I think the Eagles, you might see a lot of play action by the Eagles on first down, because I think the only way the Rams win is if they put the Eagles in 2nd and long so that they can get maybe to Hurts in that pass rush. Because for the reason you just said, the Eagles really haven't worked on their pass game all season long. So the only way they could do it is to take the ball out of 26's hands. Do you see a closer game than the one from week 12, Tim?
I do anticipate that. Listening to Sean McVay's press conference from yesterday, he was basically saying how that week 12 game was humbling for them and that the defense responded the way that you would hope they would. And then if you look at their performance over the last handful of games, they've held their opponent to single digits in each of their last 4 performances, if I'm not mistaken. You take out that week 18 game against the Seahawks when they're not playing any of their starters. And so they buttoned it down defensively. It seems like they have grown, but it's kind of a tough spot for the Rams in that they're coming off of that emotional win. They obviously have been dealing with everything they've been dealing with in Los Angeles with the fires. They're kind of, they're on the road, even though it was a home game because they had to practice and stay and play in Arizona. Now it's a short week and you have to come to Philly. It might snow, right?
Yeah.
That's a tough sort of
really tough. You are right. The deck is stacked against them. Even I admit that the deck, I think, is totally stacked against them because the Eagles worked a little rust out last week, Tim, and I think they're going to be extremely formidable come Sunday. But Tim, you also, and I urge everybody who's watching me now to check Tim out on ESPN.com. Always has some great pieces in there, and you had a lengthy piece on ESPN.com on Coach Sirianni. You mentioned in here. You said a talent-rich roster has certainly helped the team's record, but setting the culture largely falls to Sirianni. Well, with a lifetime record as coach of the Eagles of 51-23. This guy obviously has set a hell of a culture. How does he do it?
Well, a lot of it's through personal connection. And I think that, especially after the collapse of last year, where it wasn't up to the standard that they've had of the way of the connectivity that they've come to sort of enjoy under Sirianni, and the fact that he took the step back and ceded really the offense to Kellen Moore, he was able to focus on more of building that culture back up. And so he's done it just basically through like personal touch throughout the locker room of, and you'll appreciate this as an old school guy, the handwritten letter, Pat, a thing of the past.
Yeah.
He makes that a point to write just about playing in that locker room at like a pivotal moment, like Isaiah Rodgers. It was his first start since 2022, and he pens him a handwritten letter that Rodgers still keeps with him and puts in his travel bag and reads it before every game. Or when Jordan Mailata got his captaincy, he wrote him a letter. Nakobe Dean, when he thought he needed encouragement coming back from the injury, very unfortunate. Dean suffered another one in that wild card game. But just those kind of things that builds the connectivity between the coach and the player, which then spreads out between player and player, so that you're competing and you're playing for more when you feel like you are doing it for another person beside you. So I think that there's obviously some parts of Sirianni that have come under question. He's not great necessarily at everything, but it's hard to question that he's very good when it comes to setting the culture inside the building.
Well, he obviously is, Tim. And he obviously, I mean, it's funny, I just goaded you in that question on setting the culture, but I mean, he obviously knows X's and O's too, right? I mean, don't you think Sirianni, like even this year, he has gotten, I think, some disrespect because of the presence of Vic Fangio, right? And the offensive coordinator, who's probably going to Kellen Moore, who's obviously, I think he's going to get interviewed for head coaching jobs. I think that's kind of worked against him. Do you think?
In a way, yeah. And last year is the other factor in there where he was having a tough time getting on the same page as Jalen Hurts, and the offense really got stale down the stretch, and they obviously needed a change. And you can argue that change was sort of imposed, where they decided, we're going to bring somebody in, and that person's going to be in charge of the offense. And certainly it's led to, okay, well, if they're running those, and I asked that question, is like, if they're running those respective side of the ball, like, sort of where do you fit in? What's your role going to be? But he has figured it out. And, and that is through culture setting, making sure that the message is on point from day to day and week to week. He's focusing in on the game day operations, situational football. And so he's found his niche, and obviously that combination of having those two very good coordinators and Sirianni overseeing it all has been effective for this team.
Yeah, it sure has, Tim. It sure has, pal. All right, Tim, I'm not going to let you go here without getting two comments from you on the rest of the NFC East. Don't worry about it. No Giants. Just forget it. There's nothing to talk about relative to the New York Giants. But I did want to ask you about the Cowboys parting with Mike McCarthy. I was shocked that they were actually discussing another deal. I was really shocked. But that fell apart. Are the Cowboys really going to flirt with the idea of bringing a Deion Sanders in as head coach?
I mean, I don't think it's going to end up that way. And I believe I just read today that Sanders made an addition to his coaching staff at Colorado. So I don't know that you'd be doing that if you're planning on, that would be a, kind of a mean thing to do for that person.
Right.
And it seems like that may not end up happening. It's, based off what I've been reading. But like a guy like Kellen Moore seems like he is in play, which would be really interesting. He's got that history with Dak. He's got the history with the organization.
Yeah.
And, he's had a successful run here in Philly. That wouldn't necessarily be great for Jalen Hurts. It would go through another offensive coordinator, another system. But it sounds like it would be more somebody like Kellen Moore, I think. I'm not sure he's going to leave college.
All right. Tim, does Washington have a chance Saturday night against the number 1 seed, Detroit?
I mean, I got a lot of respect for the quarterback, and how many conversations have you and I had over the years about the importance of a quarterback, Pat?
Right. Unless he's got a Bears helmet on. If he's got the Bears helmet on, forget it.
That's right. I was just thinking about this before I came on. Why did I pick the Vikings? After all these discussions we've had about the importance of quarterback, why did I pick the Vikings last week?
Yeah.
But so you have a dynamic quarterback like that, you have a chance. But Detroit just feels like they're bound for the NFC Championship game. It kind of feels like the Eagles and Lions are on that collision.
Oh, yeah, they are.
And I just don't know if their roster's ready. If their quarterback's ready for prime time, is the rest of the roster able to compete with a Lions team that's suffered a lot of injuries, but somehow has managed to still stay down?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I think it's going to be. I think the deck is stacked against Washington. I think it's stacked against Los Angeles. I think it's going to be Philly, Detroit. Tim McManus, thanks a lot for taking this time, Tim. Everybody, please look this guy up on ESPN.com. And Tim, anywhere else anybody can find you? Anything else you might be working on? You want to get out there and publicize?
No, I think we're all good. You nailed it as always. And thanks for having me on, and all the best to the family, Pat.
All right, pal. Thanks very much for joining me, Tim McManus. Always nice to have Tim on. Always nice to have him take the time to do that. It's funny. We're all talking chalk here. We're talking chalk, except I want to get this guy's opinion when we come back, and that is the excellent Greg Beachum from the Associated Press out in Los Angeles. We had Greg on in week 12, and I thought we'd bring him back here to talk about whether the Rams are, in fact, they were certainly built for beating Minnesota. Are they built for coming to Philadelphia? We'll do that next here on This Week in Pro Football.
What on earth are you doing? We have dinner reservations in 15 minutes.
I'm trying to figure out who to start in my fantasy football lineup. Every website I check has a different opinion. It's driving me crazy. How do you set your lineup so fast?
I have a secret weapon that will blow your mind.
Wow. What's the secret?
I've been using fantasyguru.com for all of my fantasy football decisions.
Fantasyguru.com? Isn't that with that crazy guy, Jeff Mans?
You mean the legendary fantasy guru, Jeff Mans? He's a genius. Fantasyguru.com has everything you need to dominate your league. Starts, sits, busts. It's like having a fantasy football expert panel in your corner.
Wow, fantasyguru.com. But I feel like you're cheating on me.
How do you think I won our league last year? Fantasyguru.com. It'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Join fantasyguru.com today. Use the code NEW30 for 30% off instant savings.
Evolution Energy Partners has helped hundreds of businesses save millions of dollars on their energy spend. They offer electricity and gas procurement strategies, efficiency audits and engineering and financing solutions, as well as online utility bill management. To learn how your business can save, visit www.evolutionep.com or contact Chuck Herschella at 610-329-8288. Evolution Energy Partners, energy solutions to improve your bottom line.
At Whistler Pearlstein LLP, we assemble the most effective team to handle all of your legal needs. There are players and pretenders, but our hustle and heart set us apart. In practice now for over 75 years, we're proud to be one of the most prominent full-service law firms in the Philadelphia region. We offer 17 different areas of practice, including business, corporate, and tax education law, real estate, zoning, and land development, municipal law, and litigation. Our top-rated attorneys and staff are laser-focused on client success. We strive to provide outstanding legal counsel with the highest level of care and consideration. Let us show you the Whistler way. Learn more at whistlerpearlstein.com or email Michael J. O'Donohue at mod@whistpearl.com, whistlerpearlstein.com, or mod@whistpearl.com.
Welcome back here this week in pro football. Pat Callahan joining you on JAKIB Sports. Thanks to everyone who was in the chat tonight. Appreciate it very much. And let's chat with this guy who writes for the Associated Press and covers the Los Angeles sports scene, all the teams in the LA sports scene, including the Los Angeles Rams. Greg Beachum. Greg, how are you?
Hey, Pat, I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
All right, pal. I see that the walls in your house are still there, so that's a good sign, right, Greg? Are you anywhere near this hellscape?
I am not. I'm kind of equidistant between the two. I live in Burbank, so there's a fire on the left of me and the fire on the right of me, and I'm stuck in the middle. But it's been a lot of smoke in the air, a lot of fires you can see on the flames on the horizon at night. But other than that, it's been pretty good for us. It's been
Other
pretty
than
good.
that, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln.
Yeah. Other than the apocalyptic hellfire, yeah.
Yeah, I listen. I wish you all the best. I wish everybody. I have a brother who lives in West Hollywood, and he had to reload for a few days, but he's back now. But that's got to be tough. That's got to be so stressful on everybody to walk outside your house and see nothing but orange. Difficult. But thanks for taking the time tonight, Greg.
Of course.
All right, listen. I want everybody to check this guy out. It pieces on apnews.com. You wrote a piece on the Ram defense. So if I asked you what you saw that was most impressive about the Rams win on Monday night, I assume you would lead with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a really unusual game, a lot of unusual circumstances. But aside from the obvious emotional energy they get from that, the wildfires, the tragedy, the losing the home playoff game they spent 5 months earning, it was just a solid, really good defensive performance by them. A defense that's been on a high for over a month now, putting in another really great piece of work. I mean, Rams offense was fine, scored 20 points, looked solid. Matthew Stafford was very solid, even though he lost Tyler Higbee to injury early, but they didn't blow the Vikings off the field. It was the defense that was outstanding. I mean, they did everything right. They stopped the run. Then they finished on pass plays to the tune of 9 sacks. This is not one of the better tackling teams in the NFL. And while they've got a lot of pressure this year, their sack to pressure ratio was not great earlier in the season, meaning they weren't finishing those plays with sacks. Particularly Jared Verse, their outstanding rookie edge rusher, knows that he has to do a better job finishing sacks. But then you get in a game where, and it's as much on the Vikings as on the Rams, where Sam Darnold is holding the ball too long. His offensive line and his blockers are acting like a bunch of matadors and letting you get to the quarterback every other down. Right. Your sack to pressure ratio gets real healthy all of a sudden. So I was impressed by the Rams' defensive effort, but I think they'd be the first to tell you that won't mean a whole lot against this week against a Philly team that's a whole lot more serious at this point in the season.
All right. There were 2 other points you made in the piece, and one of them you just mentioned I want to get to. First, though, is you mentioned in the piece how the Ram cornerbacks had an excellent night. Justin Jefferson, not one reception in the second half. Jordan Addison was more or less a non-factor also. Do you think there's any way, because they're not built, the Ram corners, I'm impressed with them, but now you step up. Now you got an A.J. Brown who's half of an offensive guard, the way he's built. Can they continue that kind of successful play against a receiving tandem like Brown and Devonta Smith?
That's the question. I can't wait to see what they try to do, because Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, for all their talent and their obvious speed and ability, they're smaller receivers that you can guard, that a smaller cornerback can handle. And, Philly is a whole different challenge. And one secret in there, I think, might be, the cornerback's playing well, but I think fans should also keep an eye on Quentin Lake, the safety out of UCLA, who's become kind of a jack of all trades for the Rams. He doesn't play the role that they called the star role when Jalen Ramsey played it in the Raheem Morris / Brandon Staley version of this defense. But Lake has a bunch of jobs for them that he does really well. He'll frequently line up in the slot to cover a receiver. He'll help out on the outside, but he also, contributes a lot against the run. Sometimes he'll drop back and help out the safeties on the back end with Cam Kinchins, the rookie, which frees up Cam Curl to get in the middle and get in the run game. So they have him doing a different job every week. And it seems like when they have success against good receivers, which is not every week, that Quentin Lake's involved a lot and he's making a lot of plays. So it'll be interesting to see if they can figure out a way to combine all of their defensive, backs, which are some have a lot of different strengths, but there are not any world beaters back there in a combined effort to slow down 2 really good all-world receivers.
All right. The other thing, Greg, that you mentioned, you can follow Greg, by the way, on X. You can see right there at Greg Beachum. Greg, you mentioned emotional energy, and let's face it, you have to be skeptical of this. The Rams they had a reload at Glendale. They got all that stuff to worry about at home, but they coalesced beautifully behind Coach McVay and his rallying cry of "We're built for this." Now, 3,000 miles east, they're going to play in an open-air Thunderdome, 25-degree, snowy arena with the most hostile fans you could possibly assemble. Are the Rams built for this?
To the extent that anyone's built for that, I don't know. I'm not sure anybody can handle the kind of situations that you get in late game playoff situations in Northeast and that kind of thing. And, no, a lot of these players have experience playing in snow games and all that stuff. They played in New York, played the Jets a month ago. But in terms of the overall emotional stuff that it's going to take to compete, it's going to be a challenge. I mean, the emotional high of last week was one thing, but, it's kind of back to normal this week. They're still at home. They're the fires have thankfully died down in the last couple of days. There hasn't been a lot of worries about that. They did wonder if they were going to have to move somewhere for the week and train somewhere else. They ended up not doing that. Although they did take the day off today. I think it was just mostly for rest and recuperation rather than.
That was smart. That was
smart. I thought it was. Yeah. So I don't know that anybody can be ready for that, but in terms of the X and O's on the field, they'll be prepared for that. Sean McVay always has his teams ready to play over and over again, week after week. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, the emotional stuff, I don't know.
No question. Greg, what's going on with Cooper Kupp? One catch Monday night. He has clearly fallen off as far as being even what I'd call, Greg, a 1A. Nakua clearly the number one target now for Matt Stafford. I wouldn't even say Kupp is 1A. Only played 29 snaps Monday. Is he injured again? Are they just keeping it quiet? Or is he just near after a wonderful career, but not a very big guy? Is he just worn out?
He insists he's not injured, and we have to kind of take him on his face because the Rams are not going to give you a straight answer, even if they knew. And they obviously know. But the fact is, but beyond just whether he's available or not, he's not as open as much as he was. If you watch the plays on a snap-to-snap basis, it's not the same level of separation he's getting. It's not the same level of featured role in the game plan that he's getting. And these game plans have been interesting. There's been a lot of balls for Puka Nacua, obviously, like you mentioned. And Matthew Stafford obviously has a bond with him, but they've been trying to do a lot with other things and other ways of moving the ball down the field. They used a lot of tight end targets in the last game. They got the ball to Tyler Higbee 5 times, and he only played 12 snaps before he got injured. Yeah. And then after that, they got the ball to 3 other tight ends. So they're trying a bunch of different things, and you don't know whether it's the chicken and the egg thing. And Sean won't say whether he's doing that because Kupp isn't open or whether Kupp's not getting the ball less because Sean's trying to do other things. So it's a combination of all those things, but I don't see an obvious injury with him. He appears to be moving okay, but that doesn't mean anything. He's a baller. He's a tough guy. He would never tell you, that he couldn't play. He will always go out there and suit up for the team.
Well, I'll tell you, Greg, I think the Rams are going to have to score points. They are not going to hold the Eagles to less than 24. Not a chance. All right.
Exactly.
So I think the Rams are going to have to score. I think if they have any kind of chance, they have to have success on first down because otherwise their play action game disappears, and you don't want to put Stafford in that kind of position. Do you think Tyler Higbee will be available for the game? And tell me what kind of game you think Kyren Williams could have. I think he's a massive key for Los Angeles in this game.
It looks like Tyler's going to be available. We don't know much today because, like I said, they ended up not practicing today, so we'll know a lot more tomorrow. But, he's as tough as they come. Big Rig Hig will play through just about anything. If he can't play, they still do have 3 options, 3 guys who are pretty good and, aren't not necessarily starters in the NFL. But if you mix them up and you get them open, they can make the tight end a part of the offense. And even 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, which they used a lot against Minnesota, they can do that. Kyren Williams, I think it would be a big night for him to have a big game. I think they could really use a contribution out of the running game. And while he's been consistent in the second half of the year, he hasn't had a blow up, really look at me, take charge game, which he is capable of as one of the top running backs in the NFL. One key to that is often the fact whether the Rams offensive line is fully healthy or not. And it looks like they're all going to be healthy. Although Alaric Jackson, the left tackle, did show up on the injured report today with a chest injury. So we'll learn more about that tomorrow. If all 5 guys are healthy, I think Sean McVay will definitely try to run the ball. And Kyren has been aching for a chance to be the featured guy in this offense.
Yeah, and he's got to stop putting the ball on the ground. He has to stop that. I mean, he really fumbled almost twice. Now, the second one, he got twisted up real bad. I understand it. But he's got to stop that because that is an absolute game changer when he does that. But that'll be, I think, very interesting to see if McVay commits to the run. Sometimes he has trouble doing that. One other thing, Greg, before I let you go, just if I could hit you with a one-off, because I know you cover all of the teams out in Los Angeles. And it's such a quarterback-dominated league, the NFL, and where everybody's anticipating Stafford versus Hurts. What happened to Justin Herbert in that game Saturday? the Texans, 3 picks all year, and he throws 4, and a couple of them were just noticeably off-target throws. How do you account for that?
It's the end of a year in which I am amazed that the Chargers had as much success as they had with the skill position talent that they have, which is not very much.
Right.
They got into a situation against a really good team in the Texans, and Justin Herbert is trying to do a lot with a little, and he ends up trying to do too much.
Right.
You make one mistake, you fall behind, you try to make another mistake. It's the classic human frailty. That's what it comes down to me. I still stand in awe that Jim Harbaugh got 11 wins out of that roster.
Yeah.
And the fact that they had a bad game in the playoffs does not take away from my amazement at that fact. I think if they go out in free agency, get themselves a receiver, get themselves an elite tight end, perhaps in the draft, that's going to be a really good team next year, because they did this with he's throwing to guys who are not open a lot and who are not very good receivers beyond Lad McConkey. So I feel bad for the way it ended, but I think it was a very successful season overall.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I think he's a terrific quarterback. He's got a bazooka for an arm, and he's usually deadly accurate. And I wish him well, but you're right. That was a tough fall for the Chargers.
Rough way to go out. Yeah.
Yeah, and a game that I thought really they could win. I'm not impressed with Houston, but the trouble is teams like Houston, if you let them hang out and you let them start feeling good about themselves, now you've got a different team you're playing against.
Yeah, that defense can do some things. Yeah.
Yeah, and they did it. All right, Greg Beacham, I appreciate you taking the time here. Do you think do the Rams have – they're a 6-point dog. I'm surprised it's that little, Greg, tell you the truth. Do you think the Rams could ride that wave enough to pull off what I think would be a huge upset Sunday?
I'd give them a shot. I mean, I don't think anybody in their right mind would think the Eagles would not be favored to win this game, but they've won 9 of 12, down the stretch of the regular season. They've only lost 3 games since their bye week. They're doing a lot of things right. They're not the flashiest team. They're not a star-laden team. They don't have an all-pro on this team, but they know how to win, and they have a coaching staff that is as good as any in the NFL in terms of making adjustments and knowing what to do in tough situations. So they obviously are not the favorites, but a couple of turnovers here and there, a couple of breaks here and there, who knows what can happen? I think it'll be very worth watching either way.
All right. I mean, I think I'll tell you this. Chris Shula, he's not going to get anything this year, but if he continues, if that team, I think that's going to be a formidable team next year, and I think his name will start being bandied about come a year from now, if in fact they continue to impress the way they have the second half of the season. I'm talking about the Ram defense, but I think it's a tall order. Yeah, I think it's a tall order, Greg. And I've been a long-time Ram fan. I told you that, but I think this is a real step up in class. There's no Sam Darnold going to be on this field Sunday, and I think it's going to be a tough one for you. But listen, I appreciate you taking the time. Please stay well and keep those walls up. All right.
Do my best.
Soak the house down, Greg, before you go to bed. All right.
I'll go do it right now.
All right, Greg Beacham. Thanks for taking the time, pal. All right. Greg Beacham joining me there from the Associated Press out in Los Angeles. All right, Xander, can you just bring up that, I guess it was number 3, which is the grid for this weekend. And we'll just sum it up here. I think the Chiefs hold serve against Houston. It's funny, Justin Herbert and Sal Paolantonio thought Houston is going to give the Chiefs a fight, and they might. But I just don't think the striped shirts are going to let Kansas City lose that game. Sorry. Washington against Detroit. I think the deck is stacked against the Commanders. Jaden Daniels is capable, and Terry McLaurin are capable maybe of keeping that team in it, but they don't have a running game at all. And I think Detroit just overwhelms them in the second half. I think the Eagles they're gonna beat the Rams. They're gonna beat them by, I think, 13 to 14 points. I don't think that game's gonna be that close. I really don't. And the Sunday nighter, I think, is going to be close. And I just think it's a huge, huge legacy game, like I said. And Lamar against Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen prevails in that game. He is having a special year, and he's a special quarterback. All right, that'll do it for a divisional weekend edition of This Week in Pro Football. Thanks a lot to my guys. I don't want any Jacob, my own guy Xander wants you guys to give me some grief because I'm a Ram fan. How about that? Talk about who needs enemies when you got friends like that? Been a Ram fan since 1967, and I know more about the Eagles than Xander will ever know. I'll have to get him on. I'm going to get him on sometime during this Super Bowl run, and we'll talk some. I'll get Xander on. We'll split screen, and we'll see what Xander knows and doesn't know about the National Football League. All right, thanks a lot to all of you for joining me today. Thanks to everybody for joining me and guesting and coming on the show. Tim McManus, Sal Pal, Greg Beachum, Justin Mark, and appreciate it. We'll watch the games, and we will talk about it next week on a conference championship edition of This Week in Pro Football. Good night, everybody.